What is up, guys? This is QRim from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm actually going to bring you guys my tournament report for this past Locals weekend. Now, this past weekend, we had a kind of sort of win half a box tournament at my Locals, and I was lucky enough to actually top the entire Locals, and as you guys probably have seen yesterday, I did post a video of me opening those prize packs that I did win, so make sure to check that out if you feel like it, or if you just want to not, I guess that's fine too, I guess you could say. But yeah, I did decide to play Performance Shaddolls for this Locals, primarily for the fact that this will be the last time that I'm able to run this card, because after I believe this Monday it's going to be banned. So I was like, heck, why not? Let's end this final Shaddol format with a bang, and let's try go for the win. And again, lucky enough for me, I was able to get that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into this tournament report. Let's starting off with the main deck as usual. Alrighty, so the Shaddol lineup is pretty much the same. Like, again, you guys probably can guess this already. We have 2 Beast, 3 Squamata, 2 Falco, 2 Hedgehog, and then finally the last Dragon. Now, the thing is, after this tournament, it was actually kind of funny because of the fact that I was actually missing the third Hedgehog quite a bit, because of the fact that I was actually running into the fairly unique problem throughout the Locals of not having Shaddolls in hand, and because of that, again, I was kind of just missing the third Hedgehog just to help me get Shaddolls into my hand. So that was actually a pretty weird happenstance for this past weekend, but in general, this whole Shaddol lineup was still very, very good, and again, besides that, maybe that third Hedgehog that I was just grumbling about not having, I really wouldn't change it for the world. So yeah, moving on, we did run, of course, the Performance Engine in the form of 3 copies of Performance Damage Juggler, the 2 copies of the Performance Trick Clown, and actually added the Performance Hat Tricker in at the last minute. Now, of course, the Damage Jugglers and the Trick Clown are fairly self-explanatory. That makes pretty much the entire Performance Engine. But I did decide to put the Hat Tricker back into this deck because I was really missing a 40th card for the deck. And I was actually trying to settle upon Glow Up Ball, but after thinking about it, I felt that Hat Tricker was actually going to be a lot better. Because of the fact that it could actually make me Abyss Dweller a lot easier, because I was expecting Kozmo to be a thing at my Locals, as well as for Burning Abyss to be another prevalent deck at my Locals. So I actually did decide to put the Hat Tricker in back as a one-of, just because I felt that Abyss Dweller was going to be extremely powerful throughout the day. And thanks to this, actually, I will say that I was actually able to make Dweller quite a lot in my matchups. Oh yeah, and speaking of my matchups, I will actually detail all of those matchups down in the description below. I will say that the competition was actually fairly strong. It wasn't a lot of rogue decks, so I will say that this top was actually fairly legitimate because of the fact that I did play against pretty solid meta decks. So yeah, I will detail that in the description below, FYI. So yeah, moving on, we have 3 copies of the Mathematician, of course, because also this card is going to be limited very, very soon. So I did want to enjoy a final tournament with this guy at 3, and of course, just throughout the day, every time I opened this card, it was phenomenal. So of course, we did run the 3 Mathematician. Then we have the whole suit of hand traps in the form of 2 copies of Effect Veiler, and then the 2 copies of Maxive, just because these guys are very, very strong, each in their individual right, just of course in this format, because of the fact that these both can kind of stop Norden, in the sense that Maxi forces your opponent to either stop and neg themselves, or they're just going to give you a ton of advantage, and Effect Veiler is just, of course, for Necros and just general effects that we don't want to happen. Now, going forward, though, I will see Veiler probably dropping in usage just because of the fact that the Cosmos and the Magic Spectres cannot be targeted. But again, just for this final couple of days of this current July format, I did decide to put the Veilers in for its last go-around. So yeah, finally for the last monster, of course, we have the obligatory BLS. Every time I saw this card, it was phenomenal. Like, for real, I want to say that every time I did actually summon this card successfully, I just won. So, yeah, BLS is too good. Really, I don't know what else to say about BLS, of course. Moving on, we go into the spells, starting off with the 3 Shaddol Fusion and the 3L Shaddol Fusion. Of course, this is also going to be limited in the coming format, so I, again, wanted to enjoy myself by having the 3 in my deck. So yeah, there's nothing really to explain. Of course, it's just the fairly standard good Shaddol Fusion lineup. Moving on, I also did decide to run 3 copies of the Instant Fusion, primarily for the fact that these are essentially 3 more Shaddolls if you ever need them, because you can summon the window off of them. And also it's Norden, because Norden is pretty good. I will say that throughout the entire tournament, I didn't really see this card. I think I only saw it once, maybe, against Burning Abyss. And outside of that, I really didn't see it because I don't know, I thought it would be a good idea to put it back at 3, just because of the fact that I did actually just really want to see it a lot more often than when I was running it at 2. But ironically enough, again, I didn't really see it throughout the entire tournament, so there was that. Moving on to our other generic spells, we have one copy of Foolish Burial to act as our fourth copy of Mathematician, and then of course we have the one copy of Raigeki. Now the funny thing was, I ended up siding this out almost, I want to say half my matchups, I ended up siding Raigeki out because of the fact that I felt this card is actually extremely lackluster against Kozmo, because you want to use this card to again clear your opponent's board to push for the damage, but because of how Kozmo innately works, I felt that it wasn't really that advisable because of the fact that all their big ships can float into small grills, and the grills most of the time can be backed up by an Honest, which is actually, again, really scary for this deck. So I ended up siding out Raigeki against my Kozmo matchup, as well as against my Yang Zing matchup, because Raigeki is horrible against the Yang Zing. So yeah, there was that. Although the other times when I did see it against Burning Abyss and Qliphort, it was actually still very, very good. So yeah, that was the spell lineup. Moving on to the traps, we have one copy of Core, because of course we have to have the one copy of Core for Anoya Tylus plays, even though I did not summon Anoya Tylus all day. Then we have the two copies of Breakthrough Skill, primarily for Necros and other bad effect decks, but really, I ended up setting this out again a lot like Raigeki because of the fact that this card is not that good against Qliphort, and it's also not that good against Kozmo because, albeit you can use this card to stop something like maybe like a Farm Girl Search effect, it doesn't really help you because of the fact that you cannot break through Kozmo Dark Destroyer, and because of that, this card was really iffy. I just threw it in just to be kind of a safe pick, just in case I play against Rogue. But in general, I think it was a very sound pick for the tournament, and I was very happy of how it performed throughout the day whenever I did see it. Moving on, we actually have the one copy of Emptiness, which is the MVP by far against Kozmo. I kid you not when I say I probably must have used Emptiness twice against my Kozmo opponent. And both times it was whenever he would banish a girl to summon a big ship, I just flipped Emptiness, and it was pretty darn GG from there. So yeah, Emptiness just put in so much work against Kozmo, and I was just happy with that card throughout the day. And then also I decided to play the one Solemn Warning as general monster negation just because of the fact that I was also fearing Satellar Knights were going to be around my locals. Again, thankfully I didn't play that deck, so I also ended up siding out Solemn Warning against certain decks. I did end up siding it out against Burning Abyss, but I did of course keep it in against the Kozmo and the Burning Abyss matchup just because of the fact that this card actually can do. Oh, excuse me, did I say Burning Abyss? I meant Qliphort, yeah. I meant Kozmo and Qliphort, guys. This card was supposed to put in a ton of work against those decks in theory, but I ended up not seeing it throughout the entire day, which is actually kind of depressing. But it was there, again, in the theory that it could help me stop big summons for my opponent. So yeah, that will be the entire main deck. I was very happy with the main deck, of course. Moving on to the extra deck, of course, we have our 3 copies of El Shaddolls Nephilim. Oh, it's gonna be really depressing when I can never summon this card ever again in the coming format because it'll be banned. But yeah, this was of course the final time I could ever play 3 of my favorite fusion monster in the game. And of course, she's just amazing. She was phenomenal throughout the day. Although she is in theory very, very strong against Kozmo because of the fact that she can blow up any of the big ships no problem. I will say that my opponent actually never got a big ship out, I believe, in my entire Kozmo matchup, just because of the fact that I would always open some kind of floodgate or something to just really help me hinder my opponent from summoning those big ships. So this card didn't really put in a lot of work as I hoped against Kozmo, but against all the other matchups, it was just outstanding. So of course we had the 3 Nephilim. Moving on, we have the 2 copies of Winda. I ended up never making this throughout the entire day, believe it or not. I made it once against Burning Abyss when they attempted to Fire Lake my board. And I kid you not when I say that was pretty much the only time I ever made Winda. I never found any opportunity to make this card just because of the fact that Kozmo really can play around this card really easy. Because you can summon their Winda, but all they'll have to do is summon either a Dark Destroyer or a Forerunner to just punch over it. And against Burning Abyss, again, that was pretty much the only applicable time Winda came up. So yeah, this was fairly lackluster throughout the day. I didn't even get to instant fusion at any time, so that was a thing. But again, it was there in the theory for just being a really good floodgate-ish kind of monster. Moving on, we have the 1 copy of Shekinaga, because of course we have some Earths, so we have to have the Shekinaga for them. I only made this card once, I believe, against my Kozmo matchup when I seriously could not make any other thing except the El Shaddolls Shekinaga, so that was a thing. And then we also do run the 1 copy of El Shaddolls Anoya Tylus, but this never came up because I never played Necros. So yeah, that will be it for the El Shaddolls monsters in our extra deck. And of course, we have our 2 copies of Elder Entity Norden, because Norden is good. And again, like I said, I only ever maybe summoned this guy off of Instant Fusion, maybe like, I want to say once or twice. I didn't see the 3 Instant Fusion as often as I like, but still it was there in the theory that it was really, really good. So yeah, that'll be it for the fusions. Moving on to the synchros, we have the 1 copy of Leo for the Burning Abyss matchup. I actually was thankful because I did summon this card in my Burning Abyss matchup, but the sad thing was that he had an immediate Raigeki to answer the Leo, so that was pretty sad. And in general, it was just there to help me get back my fusions using the Falco and the Nephilim play. So yeah, there was Leo. And then we also have the one copy of the Trishula, which I actually did make against Qliphort, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Oh yeah, I made this against Qliphort and Burning Abyss, and it was just really, really good when I did make it against those matchups. So yeah, that'll be it for the Synchros. Moving on to the XZs, we have one copy of Dark Rebellion. This technically would be Evil Storm Exciton Knight, but I don't have one because I sold it off last week. So yeah, I just kind of threw this in as a last minute rank 4 because again, I didn't have the Exciton, so I was just like, frick, throw Dark Rebellion in here to just act as a good rank 4. And I actually do believe I did make it against Burning Abyss, I think. I don't quite remember. I know I made this one time throughout the tournament. I just don't quite remember which matchup it was in. But yeah, this card was pretty darn good when I did actually make it at one time. Moving on, Castel. Castel, of course, is just good for that spot removal, and it was really, really good against Kozmo because due to the fact that my opponent really couldn't get his big ships out, I was able to just use Castel to spin back all of his girls. So that was really, really nice. Then we have the one copy of Abyss Dweller, which in my opinion is probably the MVP of this extra deck for this past tournament, because I kid you not, when I did the dirty thing of making Abyss Dweller over things and then Raigekiing my opponent's board, which was pretty darn nasty, and I will say I probably did that that move, I want to say about 3 times, which is kind of crazy. I actually did see Raigeki quite a bit this tournament, and again, just in general, comboed with Abyss Dweller, it was just outstanding. So yeah, there was those rank 4s. And then, of course, we also have the one copy of Performance Trapeze Magician for all of those OTKs. Now, there was only one time when I could do the Trapeze Magician and Nephilim OTK, but unfortunately for me, my opponent did have double Veiler for both my Nephilim's effect when it was summoned and my Trapeze effect when I targeted my Nephilim, as well as he also had a Jurighetto to stop one of the attacks, which is pretty darn nuts. But again, it was there for the fact that it could help me OTK, although I never got it off that whole tournament. And of course, Yusei Token, haha. Gotta throw that into frame every so often. So yeah, that was it for the extra deck. Moving on to the side, it was 2 copies of Retaliating Sea, although I never played Shaddolls, so that was a thing. So I guess, yeah, Retaliating Sea was a fairly dead card for the tournament. Then I have 1 copy of Ghost Ogre for the Qliphort matchup. I actually did end up seeing it, which was actually really, really helpful, allowing me to blow up my opponent's Qliphort Scout. So that was really nice. Then we also have the 1 copy of the Thunder King Ryo, again for Satellar Knights and Necros, although again, like I said, I never played either, so yeah, Thunder King was another dead card in my side deck. Then finally for the last monster, we have 1 copy of Denko Sekka. Now, I will give a little disclaimer. I also have 2 copies of Royal Decree in this side deck, primarily because of the fact that I don't actually have a playset of Denko Sekka. I only have 1 right now. So, yeah, that was a thing. But again, I did actually side this in against Burning Abyss, and I actually saw the one of Denko Sekka, which is really, really helpful. And because of the fact that my opponent did establish a 3-card back row, again, I haven't done this in quite a long time since I believe Denko Shaddolls format, but again, I summoned it over that big back row, and it was so satisfying. So yeah, we have the 1 Denko Rekka in our side deck. Then moving on to the spells, we have of course the 3 MST because floodgates are bad, and we don't like floodgates. And then, of course, we also have the 1 copy of Mind Control for those specific matchups where I feel that stealing my opponent's monster to make things is really, really cool. I actually did steal my opponent's Kozmo Farm Girl in my Kozmo matchup, and I did make a Nephilim out of it, which was pretty darn fun. So yeah, the Mind Control was in here for all of those shenanigans. So that'll be it for the spell lineup in my side deck. Moving on to the trap cards. We have 2 copies of Mind Crush for Necros and Qliphort. I ended up siding this against my Qliphort matchup, but I ended up not seeing it, so I really cannot say much more. It was just there in the concept that it could really help me stop my opponent's big Apocryphal Towers plays by just hitting it out of their hand, and all that kind of good stuff. Then we also have 2 copies of Imperial Iron Wall for the Kozmo matchup, and again for more Necros hate. I actually did see this card in my game 2 against Kozmo, but sadly for me, in that match, or excuse me, not in that match, in that game 2, I ended up losing just because of the fact that I did actually draw all of my sideboard and no actual monsters in my main deck to actually use to make plays. So there was that, but again, it was there for the Kozmo matchup and whatnot. And then again, like I said with the Denkos, we have 2 copies of Decree for all those big trap decks. I never saw this card against Burning Abyss or Qliphort, but again, it was there to kind of act like the 2 Denko Sekkas that I do not have. So yeah, there was that. Alrighty guys, so that will be it for my tournament report on my Performance Shaddolls for the very final time, I will actually ask you guys a question for this video. I want you guys to actually please put down your favorite memory from this past July format down in the comment section below. And please, I want to know actually how you guys are going to approach the coming format. What decks you guys might want to play, what decks are you guys gonna look into playing, and how you guys are gonna like really just think of the meta going forward. So yeah, I'd love to hear all of you guys' thoughts on that in the comment section down below. And of course, I hope you all did enjoy probably the final Shaddolls video on this channel. I don't believe I will make another Shaddolls video for a long time until maybe Train Shaddolls becomes a thing, but again, we do not know when those cards are gonna come to the TCG. So because of that, again, it's kind of up in the air if you'll ever see these decks again. But again, this was just a kind of a fun video for me because I just wanted to make a kind of send-off for my favorite fusion monster, of course. So again, hope you all did very much enjoy this video, and as always, this is Qrim from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.